Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream is an online co-op action RPG developed by DIMS in 2024. Fatal Bullet is my favorite Sword Art game and probably my favorite anime game in general. It felt great deleting an entire room full of enemies in a matter of seconds when you get your character together, and the vast amount of customization added to the cool factor. After 2 poo-poo Aquaria SAO games, I love you Medina, don't hate me, DIMS finally came back with Fractured Daydream. Not gonna lie, I wanted a Fatal Bullet too, so I was a bit disappointed. But hey, at least Fractured Daydream has Gun Gale characters in it, so I can just play them. I found out later that this is also a live service game, and that softened my boner quite a bit, but it's DIMS, so I have hope. Okay, just a little bit of hope. The graphics look alright, it looks like the anime. The characters are much more expressive than in Fatal Bullet, the environments are vibrant, and there are way more motion captured cutscenes compared to Fatal Bullet, which was a complaint I had. Though most of the motion captured cutscenes are saved for the final chapter of the story, so I wish they could have spaced them out a bit better. The overall image quality looks a bit blurry due to TAA, and there are no image upscaling options to be found like DLSS or FSR. Definitely could have used a sharpening filter here, but at least the game doesn't start in Wendell mode this time. But yeah, the game looks decent, runs well, not much to say. Like Fatal Bullet, Fractured Daydream is a looter game but with less shooting because melee is more of a thing now. It feels okay but a bit stiff. I find myself missing enemies at times when not locked on. I really wish there was a soft lock-on feature. Each character has 3 skill attacks. A Super Saiyan mode of sorts for bonus damage for a set amount of time, or sometimes an extra attack, and an ultimate attack. They're self-explanatory, and they're all unique to each character, which is great. It's flashy, pretty colors pop up with everything you do, and your brain goes rotten with each dopamine hit. It all looks good and fun, but melee didn't keep my ass glued to my seat, so as soon as I unlocked the Gun Gale characters, I never went back. Specifically, I mained Len. When I got my hands on that submachine gun, running around the map, hitting criticals and hearing that sound and those big numbers popping up, I was back hard, dude. I fucked up everything in my way and I was having the time of my life like back in the Fatal Bullet days, except the balancing is better. There were some drawbacks like the auto aim window is smaller so you have to aim more, and the enemies are still fast like in Fatal Bullet, so it's a bit harder to kill shit. When you play as Len and aim up, you might get your view blocked by foliage on the ground depending on which map you're on because of her small stature. You can play as Pito Hui to avoid the foliage problem if you have the DLC, but I didn't like her assault rifle that much, so I made her my backup instead. I liked Fukerizo and her grenade launchers too, though aiming is kinda weird with the trajectory of the grenades, but after getting used to it, blowing shit up is pretty fun. I didn't mess with the snipers much because my aim's not what it used to be, and as I move towards Unk status, it's probably gonna stay that way. There's a decent variety of playstyles in Fractured Daydream, so experiment with the characters and find the one for you. Every character has to be unlocked through the story mode. For every character to be unlocked, you have to beat the whole story with the exception of Nej and the DLC characters. It takes around 12.5 hours to beat the story. The missions are pretty easy. There are points on the map that you have to get to and kill monsters in, with the occasional boss at the end. Kinda like Dynasty Warriors, except with way less enemies. There are side objectives too, like hitting a certain amount of targets or killing a certain amount of enemies within a time limit, along with collectibles, all of which contributes to your rank at the end of the level. Honestly, I didn't give much of a fuck about the rank. I just want to level up and get good gear, but that's where the story mode falls off. Compared to multiplayer quests, story mode is pretty slow at giving you levels and good gear, so if you want the good shit, play the story until you get the characters you want and go straight to the multiplayer quests. The main gameplay loop is pretty simple and repetitive, so if you're on the grind, you might as well do it in a mode that gives you the most stuff for your time. As far as multiplayer content goes, it's almost the same as single player. The enemies are the same, the maps are the same, the boss raids are the same, though I did remember seeing some extra enemy and boss variants. The big difference is the EXP gain in loot. It's way better in multiplayer. Co-op quests have you go through stages in a set amount of time, unlocking higher world tiers as you go for harder enemies and better loot. Boss raids have you and 19 other players together to fuck up a boss. It's repetitive and boring because new bosses unlock only after you reach a certain level, so you have to grind for a while. Like the Skull Reaper is available for tier 1 and tier 2, but Kraken is at tier 3. Every boss should be available at every tier, and only the tiers should be locked behind levels. It's really boring just grinding the same guy over and over again. Sure, you can play the other modes, but they give you way less EXP for the amount of time you put into them compared to boss raids. So co-op sucks because it doesn't give you a lot of EXP for the time you put in, and boss raids are way too repetitive. I can see the gear game being fun, but there's no point keeping a weapon unless it's a high player level, because you're just gonna use whatever has a higher damage value anyway. You can upgrade a weapon using in-game gold and materials from dismantling weapons. Once you run out, you gotta grind. If you have an outdated epic weapon you want to upgrade, you need to pray to RNGs to drop a few to dismantle for materials. But at that point, you might as well just use the ones that dropped, because by the time you find one to dismantle, it's probably going to be higher level compared to the one you want to upgrade, unless again, you're at in-game level. Let's talk cosmetics. Dims is great at giving players the ability to look cool through different outfits and color combinations in their previous games, namely Freedom Wars and Fatal Bullet. Sadly, Fractured Daydream does not deliver on the cosmetics. You can unlock some outfits through playing the game, but again, it's a grind and the cool shit is locked behind microtransactions. I know this is the norm for live service games, but it's not like this is a free-to-play game. I paid money for this shit. At least give me a decent amount of outfits to get without wasting hours of my life. So we have a live service game with decent combat but slow progression. No incentive to play other modes other than the boss raids because of the amount of EXP you get. No incentive to engage with the gear game because there's no point until way later. And shitty ways to get cosmetics. Fractured Daydream is a far cry from Fatal Bullet. With the exception of maybe the combat, Fatal Bullet is way better in terms of character building, cosmetics, and enemy variety. You know, maybe it's because I don't really play live services nowadays, but is it normal to not even have one new boss in the span of a year since the game's release? Like, everything I've experienced in multiplayer I already did in the story. Where's the new shit? And if it's all saved for the late end game, why? Hook players in better, because I sure wasn't. If you come for the story mode, you might have an okay time, but if you want to keep playing, you might be disappointed in the long run. The player base is almost non-existent. You can barely fill an entire lobby, so AIs have to substitute for players. I don't know how long the online portion will last, but I do hope there's gonna be at least an offline mode or player hostable lobbies for multiplayer quests in the future, because this shit ain't looking good. The story is about the SAO gang being stuck in Alfheim Online and other VR worlds as they try to figure out what's going on and escape. There's a system called Galaxia being worked on that allows players to replay quests and enemy encounters. Now that may sound like a basic feature for an action game, but that's because it is. I don't know why they're making a big deal out of it. Because of Galaxia's buggy nature, the devs sent a girl called Fuka into the game to find bugs along with an AI named Nej. Fuka has a condition called full dive nonconformity that prevents her from seeing VR worlds fully visualized, only as data, which is more convenient for bug reporting. No VR yaoi for her. The SAO crew gets dragged into Galaxia along with like every main villain, transcending time and space. It's really interesting seeing the gang working with actual murderers. No joke, there are scenes where the villains actually seem likable somehow and has chemistry with the main cast like Desugun and Silica. Unfortunately, that's about the most interesting aspect of the story for me. The rest of the story is just the crew trying to figure shit out and yapping about fictional tech and jargon that I don't give a fuck about. This started to feel like Alicization Licorice, and that's not a good sign. At some point, Fuka fucks off somewhere for some reason, so Nej is stuck with Kirito and crew. Later on, dead bodies of the Galaxia developers in-game start to show up, and it's implied that Fuka has something to do with it. Why don't they have God mode on? It doesn't make any sense. Why have the possibility of death when developing and testing a video game unless it's like the health system or something? Anyway, Vector shows up out of nowhere and kills Fuka. Gabe here is pretty OP and starts beating ass, but fortunately Fuka is able to teleport Gabe out of there with bug tester magic. Before dying, Fuka tells the crew where to find clues on how to beat off Gabe. The clues reveal how Gabe got into Galaxia and what Fuka was doing before the events of the game. Fuka found Gabe as data and somehow felt bad for him, so she revived him, and then he proceeds to take over the place like a king. Because of Galaxia's ability to replay memories, it can also simulate emotions felt during those memories. So Gabe used that part of the system to use fear to control the mobs and do evil shit. In the final battle, Nej gets a vision that reveals she was actually Fuka this entire time. Fuka got depressed over reviving Gabe and fucking shit up, so Nej decided to temporarily give her amnesia to forget about what she's done until she's brave enough to confront her fears. I think that's a bit of an over-exaggeration to say the least. Maybe Vector's effects are just that powerful, I don't know. I mean, it's not like she accidentally fucked her dad so she needs her memories altered. Just have a few scenes of Fuka coming to terms with what she's done and overcoming her problems throughout the game. Be less convoluted. It's also confusing because you spent the entire game thinking Fuka is Nej, so whatever character development that happened is associated with Nej, but it's actually Fuka. It takes some mental gymnastics to get used to. Even Leafa points that shit out. Using the power of bravery and friendship, the gang defeats Gabe. Everyone gets to go back to their own time and world and log out, and they all lived happily ever after. The end. But wait, there's more. Nej, the actual Nej, is revived and she's actually from the future, sent here by a mysterious person? The end. This is overall an okay story. It's an excuse for all the major SAO characters to come together and fuck shit up, and it's fun, especially when it comes to the interactions between unlikely character matchups. The generic anime plot about bravery and friendship is very, anime, and there are some dumb shit like the devs not having god mode and the Nej Fuka fuckery which aren't great. Also, the way they explain shit and trying to get into the technical aspects of Galaxia and all that wasn't engaging, and I snored my way through those sections. Like all things in life, just keep it simple and you'll have fun. Now, that may sound like a jab at the story. The DLCs consist of character passes, which gives you additional characters to play as well as a short chapter in the story mode involving those characters. I don't think these are worthwhile to talk about. You get new characters to play as, so if you like those characters, there's something for you, but the stories are short and ultimately inconsequential to the overall narrative, and I didn't give two shits. Where are the expansions with new areas and bosses? This game's been out for over a year now and there's still none. For a live service game to barely have any new gameplay additions, only new characters and some boring side quests, it's shit for its longevity. Imagine if Destiny 2 only gave you new guns and a couple of shitty side missions with every expansion, instead of the multi-part saga that evolved the story with new raids and bosses. It's not like this is a fighting game where playing unique characters with very different movesets is the focus. This is a looter game with a tiered gear system with a focus on grinding. If the grinding is not expanded upon, then you're just doing it raw. The player count dropped significantly since launch, to the point where it's comparable to Fatal Bullet, a game that came out 8 years ago. If you want to make a live service, sit down and do it properly. Make the game free to play, expand it over time with actual content, have cool cosmetics, and give some good free shit away once in a while. The state the game that it's in right now is just ass. Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream can be fun for a little while, but it fails as a live service game. The graphics are decent, but a bit blurry due to TAA. Melee combat is a bit stiff, but the gunplay ultimately won me over. The loot game just isn't satisfying for me, and the live service aspect of the game, along with the lack of any good additional content, got me bored out of my asshole, same with most of the story. Dims and Bandai Namco should have committed to making either a full price game or a live service one, not whatever this is. The content is really lacking for a $60 game, and there's not enough unique content here that gives longevity to a live service game. It's really disappointing, man, seeing dimps like this. It's like shaving your pubes thinking you're free from a sweaty crotch, only to find out it's gonna be prickly for weeks, stabbing your dick every time you move. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, see you in the next video. Later.